Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Charbonneau. I'm the associate publisher for SpinSheet magazine. And with me is our editor at large, Miss Molly Winans. How are
I'm
you?
actually not at large, Sharp. You just
Well,
call me the editor. Yeah.
all right, our editor.
I'm here. I'm not at large.
That's true.
But anyway, happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Welcome back to SpinSheet Happy Hour, everybody. It's great to have you on the program. I'm
Yes.
excited for our guests tonight. We met them in June of 2020. They were on the program.
Wow.
With
That
the
seems
crew
a long
from
time ago.
Delos. And they've had some adventures since then. So I'm looking forward to talking to them about their adventures.
Absolutely. Before we go anywhere, I got to do my gig. Thank you, Mount Gay, for sponsoring this episode of the SpinSheet Happy Hour. Glad to be back on Fridays. We've had a couple now on Fridays, or this is the second one back in our normal schedule. And I'm hoping that we get everyone's tuning in now. So
Yeah.
I guess let's just bring our guests on. Let's get this party started.
Yeah, let's get this party started. Actually, Sharp, I'm looking forward to fall. One of the things I'm looking forward to is I can start wearing my Mount Gay jacket again. It's been a little too hot this summer, so I'm ready to put my jacket back on again.
Excellent.
My Friday outfit.
Well, yeah. Well, I was gonna talk about boat show, but let's bring Bill and Grace.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end because these guys are going to be at the boat show.
Hey guys.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Welcome back to SpinSheet Happy Hour. We're so glad that you guys were able to join us.
It's good to be back.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump away and control from the back stage, and I'll see you guys in the green room later on.
Okay, sure. Thanks a lot. So, well, let's start at the beginning. What are you guys drinking over there? You guys
Got
have
a little bourbon. A little bourbon on the rocks.
I'm just drinking seltzer.
Oh, yeah. I'm actually drinking seltzer too because I'm going to go to dinner and have it there. And
okay, I'm not alone.
But I was going to make a little Mount Gay and ginger, then I realized I'm out of ginger ale. So, oh well, it's kind of a fail, kind of a happy hour fail. But anyway, let's talk about sailing. That's what everybody's here for. For our audience, thank you guys. Welcome back to SpinSheet Happy Hour. If you have any questions for these guys, you can pop them up in the comments anytime, and we'll either answer them right on the spot or we'll wait until we get there because we do have some questions lined up for these guys. But if you have questions, anything you'd like to ask these guys, feel free to just put them in the comments, and we promise we will answer them for you. But the first thing I wanted to ask was, you guys were on the program in June of 2020, and you were on with the crew from Delos. And I can't quite remember if you were actually sailing on their boat or you guys were buddy boating with them at the time. Maybe you can just sort of remind me where you were at the time physically and where you were kind of in your YouTube career at that time. I feel like you were just getting started.
I was very new then.
Well, we were not actually on Delos.
I
guess I was. But we were cruising Calico Skies, our own boats. We were actually just leaving the Bahamas, the Ragged Islands. Right? That was in June. And I had actually jumped on Delos to help crew. Because of COVID, they weren't able to get crew on the boat. And it was the first trip that Brian and Kaza did, like with Nugget, that was kind of longer than a day or so. So I jumped on to help take Delos north. And Bill actually single-handed Calico north. So we made it from the Ragged Islands to, I guess, all the way to Annapolis. Bill had a problem.
Had a rig failure.
Yeah.
We popped the forward lower shroud about 100 miles off of Cape Hatteras.
How does everything happen right off Cape Hatteras?
The seas were crazy. Turned out to be like a tropical depression coming over that we didn't know because we were just seeing satellite weather. We weren't really getting like the bigger picture weather, but yeah, like the rigging was only a few years old, but there was a failure in the rod head, and I didn't lose the rig, but I had to motor and do the ICW up to get back to Annapolis for repair.
Yeah, so we ended up being separated a little longer than we thought we were going to be because he ended up in Beaufort, had to get that fixed in North Carolina. But so long story longer, we were leaving the Ragged Islands and making our way north for hurricane season.
Yeah, so we were here in June. We were talking to you guys. The boat was in J-Bins getting repaired, and then we were setting up for our summer cruising season right around the time that we spoke to you.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm glad I remembered it somewhat correctly, because I did remember, Grace, that you were on Delos for a while, but I couldn't remember whether you both were. And I knew that you had your boat. Maybe just for our audience, remind us what kind of cruising boat Calico is. Is it called Calico Skies or Calico?
Calico Skies.
Calico Skies.
Okay.
She's a 1985 Sabre 36, so it's an older boat, but it's been good to us. We've had it since 2009, and we've sailed about 30,000 miles on her. We've crossed the Atlantic twice.
Wow.
Been up to Nova Scotia, Maine, down to Bahamas, and now the boat is in Panama. So quite a few miles on the old girl, and she's still going strong.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So did you just summarize what you guys did in between 2020 and right now?
No, you
maybe give us a little summary of where you've been since June of 2020.
Yeah, so we cruised up to Maine. That was our goal for the summer. So we made it up there probably end of July, August, kind of late, honestly, a little later than we wanted to. But we cruised Maine, and then we worked our way back down, and we're in Annapolis, I think, in like November.
Yeah, we couldn't. The borders were all closed because of COVID. So once we left the Bahamas, we couldn't really travel to Canada or anything like that.
Yeah.
So we left the week before the first snow in Maine, so it was getting very cold when we left.
Yeah.
And we probably left it a little bit too late because we had a lot of hard weather going south this year.
Yeah.
So that's why the boat's in Panama. We said no more of this up and down commute thing.
So we basically came back to Annapolis by like the late fall, and then we made our way back down the coast again. And we went to Mexico straight from Florida, and then from Mexico to Panama. So that's like the year in summary.
Yep.
That's great. Can you guys, can you name just a few of your favorite places and why? And you don't have to, feel free to give a long answer. We've got lots of time. And I think a lot of people, anyone I would think who tuned in on this has kind of a dream to do a portion of what you're doing, if not all of it or beyond. So feel free to, mention a couple of your favorite places and
sure.
That's fine.
You want to talk about our very favorite place, and then I'll do like our.
You think Dry Tortugas, or are you thinking the full cruising experience?
Oh, I was thinking for the full cruising experience.
I guess for the full cruising experience, our favorite place is the Azores. The island chain between like 1,000 miles off of Portugal. It's sort of like the Hawaii. It's like a tempered Hawaii, like this crazy cliffs going into the ocean and all that kind of thing. And then you have
I didn't know it was 1,000 miles from Portugal.
From Portugal, yeah. So I think 1,000 miles, another 7-day sail to get to the mainland Europe. Yeah. And we liked it because it was just like, we left St. Martin crossing the ocean, and then 16 and a half days later, all of a sudden this like verdant green island pops out of the ocean, and you go on land, and it's like all European. There's cafes, and you got like
and it's Portugal's cheap too. So
yeah, €1 for coffee, €1 for wine. You go to the pub, you go to Pete's Pub, which is where all the transatlantic sailors go, and you have your first like cocktail being on land after 17 days, and so that was like a really memorable landfall. I think one of the most memorable we've had.
It's just such a beautiful place, and we were actually able to. It's like I think it's 9 islands. And we were able to cruise 3 of them. And one of them was sort of like more off the beaten path, a really small island. And we made friends with the locals. So that's always really cool. That's like our favorite part of cruising, one of our favorite parts. So we had that aspect of kind of getting to know like people that were there and kind of took us in and fed us. And
kind of like we got adopted by a local family who we couldn't really communicate that well with, but we just sort of got like whipped around the island to all these different events like lunches and dinners. And I wound up delivering a boat for like the mayor of the island because his delivery captain bailed, and I delivered it with him and his father, or just his father, who spoke no English. So I was speaking broken Spanish to each other. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, be doing circles when I saw a tanker. He was scared of it. So like we couldn't communicate, like just keep the course and radio them. But
kind of a whole like sidebar story. But basically like I guess we knew we'd heard the Azores was really cool, but we didn't know that much about it. And we made plans to be in Lisbon at a certain like date. So we only actually spent 6 weeks in the Azores. So we had to like leave. And my sister was actually coming to visit me in Lisbon, but Bill ended up like flying back to the Azores and then delivering a boat for this family that we became friends with to Portugal. So kind of a whole nother little story. But
I guess with this trip though, getting back to the East Coast, I think our favorite this year was Dry Tortugas in the Florida Keys.
Yeah, then the past year, I think the Dry Tortugas was probably our favorite.
Maine was really cool. We enjoyed the hiking, but I think we found it was harder boating than we were accustomed to with all the lobster pots and anchorages, and a lot of it's private land, so we couldn't get on shore as much as we would have liked. So
and
Dry
was it
Tortuga is
foggy? I know that's
very
another.
foggy, very
Yeah.
foggy. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't have radar, so it wasn't too bad. But I think because of the lobster pots, like that's just like hard because you have to pay so much attention. And we didn't have a prop cutter, which I guess a lot of people have. So we just kind of really had to not hit any.
Yeah. But the Dry Tortugas is cool because we wound up spending a month there this winter.
Yeah.
It's like really off the beaten path, and we did a lot of scuba diving.
Yeah, the diving is great. And then you have like the history because of the fort. It's so cool. And it's fairly peaceful. And yeah, I feel like with the Dry Tortugas, we were there for a month, but we still didn't see like everything. So that was cool.
And I don't even really know where the Dry Tortugas are.
It's about 70 miles west of Key West. So it's like a little it's a fort that was built there in the 1800s to protect like strategic interests in the Gulf of Mexico for America, like they were feeling threatened. So they built this like giant fort, and they never actually commissioned it fully. But so it's sort of like surreal place where there's only cruising boats there at night. They have a ferry that comes in during the day.
Yeah, so you can only get there by ferry, which comes from like drops people off at 10 and leaves at 2 or something, and then by a little seaplane. So it's the only way to get there is those two ways. So as a cruising boat, being there and also learning the history too, and because it's obviously the waterway was very strategically important at that time. So it's just really cool because you kind of feel like you're going back in time being on your own boat. Like, I don't know. It's just, it was really pretty too. Really good diving.
Really memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how about, what would you say is one of just another favorite place that might? Don't be afraid to mention some place that's typical.
Well, the other place
I love the BVIs and interesting.
Yeah, we tend to like in terms of like things like we like things that are a little more off the beaten path. So that's what we kind of look for with cruising. We look for like really good anchorages, privacy, and then Nova Scotia actually was probably kind of hand in hand with the Azores. And really, so we were in Lake Bredor area. Nova Scotia really, like that area that we cruised had all the things we look for in cruising. It had the beauty, it had the low population density, but then it was also really easy to get supplies. Like they had a great dinghy dock and the town was really cute and the people were friendly. And the sailing on the lake, it was the first time we'd ever sailed a lake. And Lake Bredor during the summer is just like 10 knots of breeze, but it's completely flat. So I was actually able to climb the mast while we were underway, which I'd never done before. And we really fell in love with Nova Scotia. So
we had private cove every night, and you could go on the property and go hike every day. And the water was like 70 degrees, so you go swimming if you wanted to. Or
collect mussels. It was just so pretty.
So if you guys keep talking, my friend Charbonneau and his wife will want to travel with you and be on your boat. So that's part of the world that they love. And he's back there saying, "Wow, we should cruise there. That sounds amazing."
Oh yeah, you got to do it by boat. And you know what? I would actually like to do it by car too someday, just because the Cape Breton, the highway looks so cool. So someday we'll be back. We wanted to go back last year, but again, as Bill said, because of COVID, it was just easier to stay in the States, and we got to check out Maine, which was cool because we also got to hike, which you didn't mention because I'm the big hiker, not Bill. So that was a huge, nice highlight of Maine. Something that Nova Scotia didn't have is didn't have Acadia, and that was awesome.
Yeah, we anchored off Acadia in Maine, which is pretty cool. You can take your dinghy right onto the trailheads and go wander around Acadia National Park, which is pretty.
Yeah, we had other cruising boats there, so everyone would go hiking, and Bill had FOMO, so he had to go, which is great because that way I got him there.
Anything you can do to get him up there, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
that's cool. Well, already you guys have surprised me because I didn't expect you to Nova Scotia. That wasn't on my radar. One of the places you would have mentioned, so that's cool.
We really enjoyed the Caribbean. We enjoyed the Caribbean as well, but I think
the Bahamas more than the Caribbean. If we had to kind of pick, we always love the Bahamas. We've been 3 years in a row.
The Caribbean's become a little bit more touristy, kind of. It's very much like a beach bar culture these days. It's very overpopulated. Unless you're going to like Barbuda or something, you don't feel like go off the beaten path. You're kind of like with the cruise ship folks. So we tend to kind of like to get a little bit more remote and just kind of live off the land as much as we can. And the boat is set up for that, with water makers and solar and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we're really happy to kind of go get lost for a little bit.
I mean, we loved exploring the Caribbean. That was amazing. There are some amazing islands. We really liked Dominica, and Grenada was really cool. But we kind of always felt, and this kind of leads into why we're in Panama, we kind of always felt like we're really on such a schedule because of hurricane season, which like it sounds kind of weird if you're not a cruiser, but it really, like, boating is so slow. It's just by nature, or at least we are the way we cruise. So it's kind of hard, you know, to get, you have to be all the way down in Grenada, or you have to be back up in the States basically for hurricane season. And there's a lot of islands and a lot of miles to make. So it's kind of a challenging place to cruise in that respect.
You guys, well, you brought up having a Watermaker, Bill, that you guys are set up for going to remote places. Since we have a bunch of sailors on the call, can you get into the nitty gritty of some of the other things that you have on your boat that make you that independent and make you be able to get away from, and that could include internet booster or anything else like that you have. And also for the audience, of course, you guys might have figured out by the titles here that we were talking to the crew from Calico Skies, Bill and Grace, and feel free to put any questions for them into the comments, even if they're not on what we're on topic with. We'll get to them eventually. But anyway, sorry, Bill, back to your question. What do you have on your boat to make it good for being remote?
We have 1,100 watts of solar, which is a lot for a 36-footer. That's pretty hard to do. It will put as much amps in, almost as much as our alternator. We have a wind generator, and we have 6 lithium-ion batteries. So we can, if it's sunny out in the summer, we could run our air conditioning off our inverter for like 2 hours and still be fully charged at the end of the day. Or we could run our Watermaker. We have an AC Watermaker. So there's DC and AC Watermakers. We have an AC, which is arguably a little more reliable because it's less complicated, but it takes a lot more power. So we make 35 gallons per hour. But doing so takes like 110 or 115 amps. So, but we can make water every day off our solar and keep the boat topped up. So we use we go through about 17 gallons a day or so. So we usually wind up running like half an hour a day for the Watermaker because we're diving, cleaning our dive gear and all that stuff. We could also, because our solar is so big, we can make like hot water. We can turn on like the dockside hot water heater off our inverter. So I think the crux of it is really power for us. Having all those powers, having a big inverter, and having lithium battery bank, we could kind of run whatever we need to run.
Yeah, power I'd say is number one. Number two, I would say before we kind of like left New York, we upgraded our dinghy. And having a dinghy that can like kind of handle like a bit rougher weather and that can go further distances and stuff makes a really big difference in terms of being more independent. I would say.
That's true too. Like we'll go on like 6-7 mile grocery runs in the dinghy, you know, like we'll leave the boat anchored somewhere. We'll go into town, like we'll run pretty far in the dinghy.
Yeah. We were more inclined to want to stay at a place that had a water taxi, like if it was like bad weather, because we wouldn't want to take our dinghy. So I think that's another big one.
I think also like our boat has very low fuel. It only carries 20 gallons in the main tank, or 18 gallons actually. Mm-hmm. So we have like quite the sail inventory. So to keep off the grid, we have to be able to keep the boat moving in sort of any conditions without using the motor too frequently. So we have like Code Zero, we have ASIN, we have Staysail, we have Genoa, you know, so with the boat, like we kind of keep that boat moving in light air very well. And that's been like key to our being able to cross an ocean, because it'd be hard to cross an ocean with 18 gallons of diesel on board. But because it moves so well, we're able to keep ourselves off the grid and our fuel. We keep fuel in the tank usually.
Which is helpful too, because we don't have to be somewhere where we have to get fuel that often. So that's...
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like you guys have some stuff figured out. We are getting some questions in. Sharp, do you want to pop one of the questions up? Do you collect condensation from the air conditioner for water? That's a good question.
You could.
No, we talked about it. We just installed the AC in March, so we're kind of still considering that option, but we have thought about it. We probably will do it before we cross the Pacific.
Right now it's going to the bilge, so it's not really the best option, but we just never really cleaned it up fully yet. I think the biggest thing, we're probably going to we have so many solar panels, we're probably going to wind up putting some sort of gutter system to collect water. Just in case, because the Watermaker is like high energy and it is a complex machine. If something did happen to it when we're mid-Pacific, we'd have to find a way to make water, and our solar panels collect so much water. Mm-hmm. So we're going to try to find a way to get that into the tank, I think, before we start a crossing. But yeah, we could. I mean, I think it's clean water. I think the condensation water is
you could
it's
definitely
potable. I'm sure,
shower with it and everything. Yeah,
and it kicks off quite a bit.
Do you recommend the Spinnaker bow extender?
We love our bow
That's
spread.
one of the best things.
Yeah, that came in conjunction with a Code Zero, and those sails. I think I got an extra 10 degrees of parent wind on our ASIM, so I used to be able to. I couldn't carry the main and ASIM past 120, and now I could see like 130, 135. The ASIM still has air out in front of the main, so it's added a lot of sailing angles for us. And also having a Code Zero, that's probably our most frequently used sails. If we're going downwind in 20, we'll have a pulled out Genoa and a Code Zero up because we'll be going 7.5 knots and we'll only have 13 over the deck. So we could kind of rock and roll downwind pretty well, which came off crossing an ocean because we did main and jib going downwind across the Atlantic, and we were rolling so much because the center of effort was not forward. The boat just kind of rocked back and forth. So we like having double head sails. And we don't have to worry about jibes because we had a pretty gnarly crash jibe in the Atlantic and broke our Traveler and broke a bunch of stuff. So
yeah,
we try to go double head sail if we can.
Yeah. So we have another question here. The fuel quality challenges you encountered, have you ever considered electric propulsion as an option, or perhaps keeping a generator as well? Thanks for the questions.
Yeah, thanks,
well,
guys.
We do have a generator. We have a Honda generator, not an inboard generator,
diesel generator, yeah,
which would be amazing, but we don't have that.
I don't think the electric propulsion is there quite yet for what we're doing. I think even if the regen on the electric motors, you have to be sailing at 6 or 7 knots to really make a difference to your battery bank. And I think that when it's light air and we for instance, going to Panama, we had a motor, I guess 2.5 straight days from Mexico to about Cayman before we turned south in the trade winds. I don't think an electric boat would be able to do that. Like, I don't think the battery technology is there yet for it. What we do though, if we have engine troubles, is our dinghy of the 15 horsepower Yamaha can move the boat pretty comfortably at 4.5 knots. So when we do get ourselves into issues, we do use a dinghy. But yeah, we changed our brake course 17 times going down the East Coast this year. We had a fuel tank issue, and I couldn't get in there, North Carolina, in January. It was too cold, so I was trying to take the pickup stick off. I couldn't get it off; it was stripped, and I didn't want to disable the boat in North Carolina in January. So we just kind of dealt with it.
Because of me, yeah.
Because
cold, we've learned over the years. Sometimes, I mean, our boat's from 1985, so when you kind of dig into things you've never dug into before, it could become a big project. So yeah,
yeah.
Exactly. And if he was alone on the boat, I mean, he's definitely willing to, freeze. But
well, it's also like we're remote North Carolina. Like we were in the middle of the ICW. It gets pretty rural out there, and it's like availability of parts is not that great.
No.
So we
just kept changing.
We just kind of kept changing filters and made our way down to Florida, and then finally ripped the fuel tank out.
Yeah.
And it was just, they had a screen.
But anyway, so we know that we can move the boat with the dinghy because we've had to do it. Yeah.
Several times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're both handy. Do you both have specialties on what you do and take care of on the boat? Or
I kind of take care of most of the boat projects. Grace spends a lot of her time editing, honestly. Like it's the YouTube is like this fancy free lifestyle we show on YouTube, but it does take a lot of work behind the scenes, a lot of hours. So I'm usually sailing the boat and fixing the boat and keeping it going, and she's basically working a normal job, which is YouTube.
I like to cook. I'm always the provisioning captain. But yeah, I don't really.
That's important. You got to eat, right?
My opinion, yeah.
Yeah.
Grace has the boat stocked with probably 3 or 4 months of food at any given point. So when I had the boat by myself the first year, because I took off a year before, I had a lot more storage for beer, and now it's all gone. It's all food.
So let's talk about some of the challenges that you've had along the way. And I mean, maybe not all boat fix challenges, but I saw at least one of your videos was about a gale. Maybe we could talk a little bit about storms and rough weather that you've encountered, or anything memorable and some lessons that you learned from that.
Well, we've actually encountered quite a lot of bad weather off the east coast of the States, which is one of the reasons why we're in Panama now. I think because we grew up sailing the Long Island Sound, and we traveled pretty extensively before we went cruising. So we kind of felt like the Atlantic was like our home, and we weren't that intimidated by it. But it turns out like October, November, December, January, I mean, we've seen some of the worst weather that we've ever seen anywhere off the East Coast. So we've made sort of, I guess you could call it a mistake, although we learned from it in the sense that I guess we've left the East Coast, but we've often left late to go south. And in doing that, we've encountered various storms. And in our last season, we left in, I guess, January. The season before last, sorry. We left in January and we got caught in a 4-day gale going from, I guess, North Carolina to the Bahamas. And it basically what we've found with like the weather systems at that time of year, when you're going like to the Bahamas or even just south off the coast of the States, is that the systems tend to be stronger than what's predicted. Like there just seems to be a lot of variability. And when you're a small boat, in a big ocean, the wind is exponential. So even if the forecast is only 5 or 10 knots above, what it's called for, it can be really bad. So
we've left on forecast for 25 and it blows up to 45.
Right.
And it's that kind of thing where we're also
big difference.
The Gulf Stream is also a problem as well because the Gulf Stream stands up the waves a lot.
It's great when you're going north. It's just always getting south. That's the problem. We had one really bad storm where we didn't even know how bad it was. Like we knew it was really windy, but we found out when we got into Eleuthera that from one of the weather buoys that was out in the ocean where we were, that the waves were
25 feet. It was like the median wave. So we were like, it was pretty gnarly out there.
And it was just like being inside like a metal can for 4 days where you're just getting like, it's so loud because it's a hollow drum kind of situation inside the hull of the boat. And you're just in survival mode. So it's just not, that's not fun.
So I think for us, like, I think we always stay too late. We sort of have fun. Like we always wind up liking the cold weather and enjoying living in the heater on. Is super cozy. But I think leaving, if you're going to do it right, I think you'd leave Annapolis after the boat show, be in North Carolina at November 1st when hurricane season starts, going away and insurance lets you go south, and then start making your way south, as opposed to us.
Which, to be fair, everyone always told us. And different years we had, like 1 year we had a problem, we had to like fix it before we left. The fiberglass, that was really bad. And every year it's been something. So it's not like we weren't aware. It's good experience, but I think, respecting that is important. But even like we've heard some crazy stories. We had friends that were cruising. They were in the ICW heading south, Linda and Will, and there was a microburst in an anchorage in the ICW, and they had 70 knots in the anchorage. And this was in what month of the year? Like
July,
not even. So I just think there's just like, just because these places are close to home, like they're not necessarily easy to sail. So
Well, and here in the Chesapeake, we had a couple tornadoes this summer, and I've had a number of reports of water spouts. So we've had a weird summer like that too. In fact, looks like Laura has asked a question here. Delos ran into some rough conditions.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah. When you said the Chesapeake, that's when they had the worst. That's probably the worst weather they had the entire time.
They said the worst weather they've had in our entire navigation in the East Coast of the United States.
Well, and the time when they were in the Chesapeake, it was blowing like 45 knots 55. Or something, 55 knots. And, the bay is so shallow.
I guess the only place we've had water come over the back of the boat is the Chesapeake Bay. Like, even in that gale, like the stern always floated up. Like, and the only place I've ever had water actually come over the wheel in the cockpit was in the bay. So it's pretty gnarly.
Another thing we've kind of learned, besides the winter weather patterns, is like, in the ocean, you tend to have really big, long rolling waves. Like if you're crossing the ocean at the right time of year, the weather is generally as it's predicted, and it's like these long, big waves, but they're really far apart, and it's just a lot more comfortable than some of the choppy seas you get because of current and because of things like the shoaling too off Hatteras, and then shallow like Chesapeake Bay. So it's kind of interesting. And then inlets, right? If you're going, north or south off the coast, you're going in and out of inlets, and those are just its own,
Yeah. Well, I think people often underestimate the current in the Chesapeake Bay and its effect on those waves. And we have a lot of things happening at once whenever there's a storm. Someone did ask, have you ever done any distance racing? Have you ever done the Annapolis to Newport or the Annapolis to Bermuda race or anything like that?
I've done around Long Island, which is only a couple 100 miles around Long Island race.
I did
a lot of racing in the Caribbean on our friend's Pogo 12.5, and that was pretty fun. Like did the whole Caribbean circuit, but nothing really of like long distances. Like that's like a 600-mile race.
Yeah, no, nothing.
Yeah,
super
yeah.
Nothing super long, really.
Yep. And Grace, have you done any racing?
No, I'm not as much of a sailor as Bill. So I'm much more in this for the lifestyle. And I mean, I love living on a boat and I love good sailing, but I do not like tough sailing.
There's been a lot of gals, but someone doesn't like tough sailing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So everyone always says that long-term cruising is really fixing your boat in exotic places. Is that just a rumor? Or is that kind of real?
No, it's always broken.
I would say though, if you're not fixing your boat, you're probably managing something to avoid having to fix something. So you're either fixing something or you're doing some kind of maintenance to prevent a breakage. But so yeah, that is true. I think you have to expect to spend like a good portion of your time on either one of those things.
Yeah, it's always.
You said your boat was older. I forget what year you said your boat was.
1985.
Okay, yeah, that's older.
But most systems we've been through already, minus the engine. That's the only one we haven't changed out. The rigging's all been changed. A roller furler twice. All the standing rigging, all the batteries, all the charging systems, alternator. Traveler, yeah. We've had to replace bulkheads. We had a bulkhead rot. Like one of the transatlantics, we had a Nego for the chain plate. We had to rip that out and replace that. So it has been a constant. Like I know when I go back to Panama, I'm gonna have some sort of problem waiting for me. I'm like, what is waiting when I open that boat up when I get there? I know I have a caretaker once a week at the boat, but
yeah. Speaking of Pandora's box, you want to just get there and sail away, right?
no chance. It's not a chance. There's definitely gonna be something. Like the guy already couldn't flush. We have a caretaker in Panama. The boat is in Panama for those who don't know, and we have a caretaker there who checks on it weekly, just to make sure there's no mold because it's such a hot and humid environment. But today he said our toilet got gross for some reason. We cleaned it before we left. But he tried
it's all fresh water.
It's all fresh water. We've dumped, but he said he tried to flush the toilet and it wouldn't go. So I'm like, great, something's clogging the toilet, and I'm not even gonna use it.
Yay, that's what you get to fix when you get to Panama. Be nice and hot.
Yeah, we got to get head hoses back there. Yeah, it's always something though. That's part of the fun of it all.
Yeah,
I'm never bored. I get pretty bored on land.
So Grace, I have some questions about sort of your specialty here. I mean, all of us are sort of amateur videographers these days. And I mean, you've turned into like a real pro when it comes to being on camera and doing the editing and all that kind of stuff. Can you speak a little bit to like what you've learned about shooting video and editing video?
Sure. Well, we really do approach definitely the filming as a team. I think it's really helpful when both people are kind of like in the right headspace for the filming. So we both kind of strategize and do all the planning and stuff together. And one thing we've learned is conscious filming is really good. So kind of, being aware of what a story might be, either as it's happening or kind of predicting that it might be a story. So you can at least kind of keep track of what you're filming, because it is really hard to balance kind of like being in the moment and then keeping a catalog of what's been filmed. So we've gotten a lot better at that. I guess just kind of like smelling a story. And I think when you do it enough too, it sort of becomes a formula. So yeah, I think we focus a lot on the storytelling aspect of our videos. We're always trying to improve our filming quality too. So we get new cameras and we can kind of afford them and stuff and try out new things. And he helps with like the technological side of that type of stuff with cameras. And I don't know, just yeah.
It's been fun.
You look at your older videos and go, oh, we were so young.
Our first videos that we filmed were on our Google phone on our transat back from Gibraltar to the Caribbean, because we didn't really want to invest like any money into it if it wasn't something that we were going to like and just be something we were going to be interested in. But I'd say audio is actually the biggest challenge. I spend probably the majority of my editing time actually on audio, and it seems like in terms of filming, it's almost like easier to get a good quality picture than it is to get good quality sound, especially on a boat. So our Google phone did not have good audio, but it had a good picture.
Yeah. I mean, we learned that the hard way at SpinSheet every week. We're really good at putting magazines together, and the video thing we try. then we get better at it. But the audio is the challenge. I think that's where you just need to invest the most money and time, right?
Yeah.
We tried.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a limit. Like it just seems like, you can spend the equal amount of money on your audio and it's still not going to be up to caliber with your video.
Picture.
Yeah.
Especially on a sailboat. But there's like little tricks. Like we always like try to film the wind to your back, so the microphone's not getting the wind over it or behind the Dodger. So there's like little tricks you could be aware of while you're filming and try to make it easier for her to edit the audio, not to make it a more difficult process.
Yeah, I think it's also important to kind of film what you enjoy, because with editing and stuff, it's like much more inspiring and fun to edit what you enjoy, which I mean sounds really obvious, but when you get into YouTube, you get a lot of feedback from people what they like to see. And we only really film like a very small percentage of our life, in a way. So you can kind of film anything, right? But I think like for me, it's important to film things that inspire me because I think that ends up being a better quality. So we do try and film some of the everyday stuff and some projects and stuff, but I try to be careful, even though I know there's a percentage of people that really like to see that stuff. I don't enjoy editing that stuff as much. So yeah, just try to kind of be aware of what is interesting me when I'm traveling somewhere, because that's the stuff that when I get it on film and when I go to review it later is going to come together to be something really like beautiful.
I think it's like any other artistic project.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you moved toward the passion, because that will come out in the storytelling.
I
if
think
it's
so,
something
yeah.
you're excited about, people can feel that. There's a good question here from another one from Scott. Thanks for asking questions, Scott. Does taking video equipment with you everywhere and thinking about filming and building stories reduce the fun of cruising, or does it enhance the experience?
I don't know if I would say that it enhances the experience. I would say in a sense it enhances it because in one sense, in the sense of the memories that you have. I mean, when you actually, it's kind of almost, it's like having a journal, but on crack. So a lot more like work. But, if you force yourself to write a journal every day and you have a record of things, I don't know if any of you ever done this, like when you're maybe on a passage or on a trip or something, and you keep a record and a log, and you can go back and read it and relive all these details and all these things that you would never remember. It's kind of a really cool part of the experience. But I don't know about you, but for me, I have to kind of force myself to do it. I used to keep a journal when we first went cruising, and I love going back and reading it. But I mean, sometimes I enjoyed doing it, but not regularly. It was kind of like a labor of love. And that's kind of similar to editing. Like it is really cool to have our memories on film. And there's so much that we do that I honestly would just forget. I mean, when I go back and edit footage from 3 months ago, there's things that I'm like, oh yeah, like that was so cool. And so that aspect is cool. And I think that probably enhances cruising. But in the moment, I would probably say no, generally, unless you enjoy filming. I actually really enjoy photography and filming to a degree. So if it's something beautiful that I'm inspired by, then yes, I actually enjoy trying to capture it on film. So there are aspects that can enhance it. But I'd say cruising overall, I'd say maybe it depends on your personality.
Yeah.
But,
like you definitely like filming me do a boat project. Like that's
right,
not like her having learned to like
Yeah.
small whatever.
So if
like
you-
she's not into that.
Maybe when you're done, like
I think that the answer to that is like, it depends what you're going for. Like we try to tell a really good story. So that just inherently means we have to film some things that I don't necessarily want to film. So that is work, right? But you have to kind of have context, and you have to work at creating a story. You can't just have like trees, because it's out of context, right? You need, that's what makes it a story. So it can be work. We have a lot of friends who are on YouTube. We didn't film for the first 2 years of cruising, and I think that was really nice. But I think editing is probably really, it's a hard question to answer. I do think about it a lot, because on the other hand, I run into people who've cruised for years and years, and it's kind of important to have like something to do, like, because if you don't have a job, I don't know, like having a job and having some structure
yeah.
and like deadlines. I mean, there's something kind of good about it, I think. But yeah, so it's kind of a hard question to answer, but I'd probably have to say so.
Before I ask, before there was a cruising question, but I just want to ask one more question about video editing and stuff like that.
Sure.
Have you made any big mistakes or had any dumb moments that you look back and say, I can't believe we did that? Or, I mean,
I'd say the only thing that I can think of would be there are things that we look back and we're like, I can't believe we didn't film that. Because now that we've gotten into one thing I've really learned about YouTube and editing is that nothing is a substitute for filming. So it can even be bad filming, but if you don't have it on film, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just not picking up the camera, I guess, because sometimes you just don't want to. Or
I think we've done stupid things like, we'll have a sequence and like the main will be down and then the main will be up, and like, or like we show dropping the main, then we'll use B-roll of like the main being up again. Like, but no one probably notices that. Like we notice, we're like, oh man, how did we miss that detail? Like we're out of order here.
Yeah, it's usually,
no one's
just
gonna
things
pay
that
attention
aren't
to
filmed.
that.
Like it's usually like when we were in the Dry Tortugas, we went to the beach every single day, and I don't think I had one clip of us at the beach, and I was like, how is that possible? But sometimes you do something repeatedly,
we're enjoying it, I guess. We're having fun.
But it's like you have to actually kind of, and then we had an incident in Maine. We were like, Brian was like, how did you not film that? Like, how did you not know that was going to be, like, you should have known that was going to be interesting? And looking back on it, you're like, yeah, I guess, but we're kind of living our life. So yeah.
Well, when you're on a vacation and it's a really good vacation, like I can't tell you how many times we don't have any pictures. That was so fun. We didn't take any pictures. But also sometimes when I'm the photographer for SpinSheet at an event or something like that, it just seems like inevitable that as soon as I put all the camera equipment away and zip it up and stash it, boom, the thing that I really wanted to take a picture of just happened. And I don't, and I don't have the camera anymore. So I guess you can't win, I guess, but I love your answer though. That's really intriguing to me.
Thank you.
So Jeff Bach, when cruising, what's
Jeffrey Bach, our favorite person.
All of them.
As much as you can physically
as much as you can put in the boat would be my answer.
Butt connectors, spare pumps, they always break.
Rake, all the engine spares, rake cores.
Rescue tape.
Yeah, we use rescue tape a lot for like hoses that split. Rot lines, like halyards,
good
shackles, tools.
Like good tools though, because that's something we've learned too. The quality of your tools is really important. And the stuff you need to take care of them, like the proper grease and
it's a huge list. I think probably 1/3 of our boat storage is probably tools and spare parts. We carry everything from spare Watermaker stuff to spare alternators, spare water pumps for the engine, spare freshwater pumps, spare anchor watchdown pumps, spare gaskets for everything, spare carburetors for the outboard. It's just like probably 7 gallons of oil for a diesel.
Yeah. And they have boats. One of our friends has a really cool Allure. This boat nowadays, some boats actually, they'll build dedicated space in one of the cabins just to do work.
Like a tool room.
Like he has like a vise, and I just think that's so smart. If you have a boat that's big
I've actually seen that on a boat before. That is really cool. His own little man cave with all his stuff.
Because you're always in the process of either maintaining something or fixing something, it's really functional, I think, to have a dedicated space where you can just kind of close up shop for the day and go eat dinner or whatever and get back to it the next day. And it doesn't take over your whole cabin. And that's a big thing for you is like, packing and unpacking stuff.
Take apart the whole boat to get to your tools or get to your spare parts. And then like the cabin's a mess until you fix whatever you have to fix. It'd be nice to have a dedicated workspace.
That's just like a fantasy of people who are not cruising with kids. Oh, you have extra space on your boat? We have a kid in that spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a babysitter in that spot, so. Yeah. So what do you guys miss about land life when you're out cruising? Do you miss anything?
I don't think I do.
I miss flush toilets, like really bad. Because our toilet, it really is like a workout. But I miss flush toilets. I miss sometimes like the convenience things, like food, being able to get takeout and stuff can be really nice sometimes at a pinch because we just never have that option. I think more so because we're doing YouTube. I didn't never miss that before, but now we're sort of like on deadlines and stuff sometimes, and it would be really great to be able to like grab a sandwich. But a lot of places we cruise, we can't do that. But yeah, I don't miss that much. Oh, I miss like Starbucks. Like whenever I come back, I want to try all the drinks that they came out with when I was gone.
Okay.
That's about it.
I don't miss much.
I don't think you miss anything.
No.
Yeah. This question just crossed my mind because I heard someone in a cruising, and we'll get to your question, Jack. But I heard someone in a cruising talk at the boat show one time say that they got some flack from family members who felt that they were just being irresponsible, like they dropped out of life, and here they were having these great adventures, and they felt like they were being looked down on a little bit from their family, and they were like, wow, we didn't really expect that reaction at all. Then we've just learned to deal with it. Do you get that from people? They intimidated by your adventures, or maybe a little jealous, or
families are pretty supportive about it. I think it took a little while for them to get used to the fact that we were never around anymore.
I think, and I think
that's the hardest part.
That's the hardest part. Because I was going to say, if people can understand what cruising is really like, then I don't think they're usually jealous. Then I think it's more like, why do you do that? Honestly, sometimes because people, they see the hard stuff too.
That you're not always like drinking out of a coconut with an umbrella in it.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's not all sunsets and rum cocktails.
But I do think the missing out on things is just something that, like, I mean, some people are just more accepting of it than others. Like my mother is an example. Like she just always wanted to like have me living down the street, and it's just like, and it's hard. It's just always hard. It's like sad for her. So I think it depends on the person, right? But ultimately they accept, all of our family and friends accept what we're doing, and they get like to whatever degree that like we really want to do this. But it can be hard because you do miss stuff for sure.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys have a really nice support group around you. Jack has another question. In addition to basic safety equipment and such, what guilty pleasure items are your go-to must-have items on the boat? It's a fun question, Jack.
Mine are all food related.
We have a big TV on board. We like that.
Oh, that's true.
Like, it is nice to like have a little bit of normalcy, like watch a TV show on Netflix as we're eating dinner at night and stuff like that. Like, so that's something we must have.
That's true. And I mean, whenever I'm like anywhere, where there's a lot of stores, I mean, I load up on like chocolate. Like I have to have my chocolate. I eat chocolate every day. So
what kind of chocolate do you have?
I actually really like Dove chocolate. It's like kind of expensive. But I like Dove chocolate. And when we travel places, sometimes I'll try like the local. Some places have like Grenada had incredible chocolate. But just dark chocolate is my thing.
I think air conditioning has crept up there for me. Like having an air conditioner installed, like suddenly it's like the best thing ever when you're sitting in Panama and it's raining on anchor. I just fire up the Hunt 2000, turn on the air conditioning. It's a game changer.
Yeah, I can see that.
Heater. I mean, we installed diesel heater. That's sort of became
that's a guilty pleasure.
That's a guilty pleasure too. Like when we're sitting in cold places, put on diesel heater.
Yeah, cool. Well, what's next on your cruising agenda? You're going back to Panama. You're going to fix the head.
Yes,
my favorite.
Then what?
Our list actually. We have a list of stuff that we're buying in the States to bring back, and we got to get those sanitation hoses. So we want to cross the Pacific eventually. I think because of COVID and maybe some other reasons too. Bill's ready to cross an ocean like tomorrow. We just got to Panama before we came up for a rainy season. So we really haven't explored Panama. So I want to explore more Panama. I think that's probably what we're going to do for the next foreseeable future is go up to San Blas. I think it would be really cool to go to Colombia. That's like a new thing I've thrown out there because we would have to go backwards a little bit. But I think we're just going to explore kind of where we are. And then maybe next year we'll go through the canal.
Yeah, something South Pacific is pretty much locked down right now. So they're not really allowing visitors in quite yet. I think because our healthcare just isn't up to the task. It's so remote and so far. If anyone brings a pandemic with them, it's going to be a problem for the little island. So I don't see us crossing Pacific. We can't stop. I guess I'm not going to sail to New Zealand from here. New Zealand's not even accepting boats either. So, so I think it has to see what changes and what opens. I guess you go to Mexico, like Sea of Cortez. Maybe that'd be cool too if we do go through the canal. Like that's another place people love.
That would be the other thing that we would maybe do.
It's supposed to be like dirt cheap, and we love Mexico. We were in Isla Mujeres, and we loved it there too. Like just really good food, awesome people. So Mexico's like is another fun country to travel to.
Yeah, and you guys speak a little Spanish, did you say? Or?
A little bit.
I'm actually from Canada, so my Spanish isn't that great, but yours is pretty good. I'm always trying to learn.
Yeah, good. Does that mean you speak French?
Okay.
Oh, that's good. So I hear that you guys are going to be at the boat show. Tell us what you're doing at the boat show, where you'll be. Anyone on here who wants to come find you, where do they go?
So yeah, we've been working with the US Boat Show. We're doing like a creators booth, which is I think featuring like 22 channels now. So it's gonna be quite the event. I think it's in the vacation basin somewhere. I'm not. It's like
It is.
VB21, but it's in that vacation
It is.
basin area of the boat show. And we're all going to be alternating through. So we'll be a couple channels together, and we'll be doing like 1 hour, 2 hour time slots every day. The schedule will be posted, so you guys can check out like your favorite channels. You want to go find them at the boat show. There'll be like a schedule when they're going to be there.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, so we'll be there every day. We're doing a couple like meetup things with patrons and stuff like that throughout the week too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Some merchandise.
Selling merchandise. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
We're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to it too. This is, it was only a couple of years ago when we had the first channel sailors come to the boat show, and I remember walking down the street and the line was out, and I thought that's an incredible line for this time of day. Then I realized, oh my gosh, they're there for the Love Vagabond people.
Yeah, that was a huge turnout.
It attracted a whole new crowd to the boat show, and some younger people and some people who otherwise might not have gotten into sailing. And I think that's an awesome side effect of what you're doing, that you are actually bringing new people into sailing for different reasons than just because they're sailors, because they're adventurers and they want to figure out how to do something like what you're doing.
I think we are seeing younger people get into it now. Like I think like especially if you're in the Bahamas and sort of the nearer places, a lot more younger people that we're running into than when we started 5 years ago. Like 5 years ago, we were by far the youngest, and like it's very few and far between to see someone in their 30s sailing.
Yeah.
But we're like in Florida, Bahamas, we're running into quite a few people who are younger doing it.
And I think there's also all these stages that go on before you actually purchase a boat. Like, we actually went to the boat show for 7 straight years before we were cruising, before we even bought a boat, because it was one of the only outlets that we had to be around other sailors, other people that liked boats. So those seeds were kind of planted many, many years ago before we bought our boat. And so I think that's kind of all part of it, right? Is people come and they have access to people who are out there cruising. They can check out boats because the dream it's a really fun stage. And it's really important because, it can take many years to save up to get a boat or be able to be in a position to have a boat and sail a boat. So
the boat show was definitely huge. It's actually like it did sell the dream to us really hard, and it was the only place we could find like-minded people who were sailors, because we were in Manhattan working in finance in New York. Like it wasn't anyone with a boat like we were. So
the other great thing is that for those 7 years we bought things from the vendors, because we were like, well, we can have foul weather gear to go out on the rental boats or our friends' boats, and like we just bought everything. And then when we actually went to go buy a boat, which cost a lot more money than buying stuff in the at the boat show, we had all our stuff already. Like we literally had life jackets, we had everything, because we would go and buy something every year, and it actually helped a lot with our first boat, is like having all this stuff already.
For sure.
Yeah. So.
Do you know how excited anyone who is one of the advertisers of SpinSheet is now? Like, oh my gosh, these two bought foul weather gear. They didn't even have a boat.
Because it was so fun. I mean, because this was kind of before we had no outlets. We were like, well, these people sail, and we're
too young to afford a boat right now. But like we go on the boats, we could buy the gear, and we get ready to, we used to race on friends' boats and stuff like that, like in Long Island Sound. But we wanted to, go fully on board. So it is a big part of the dream. I'm glad the boat show's doing that. I think it'd be cool if people want to come talk to all the sailors, like the YouTubers who are all living that cruising life. Yep. That's a good way for a first-time sailor to kind of get into it as well. Because we're all there, we're all living on boats full time.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, and the cool part is that it seems that, you guys are so generous with your knowledge and your stories that, that's a huge help to people and a huge inspiration. So I talked right through our last call. So I think Chris Charbonneau is going to come back here soon, but you guys have been such great guests. I hope you'll come back. I hope we can bring you back and hear about your next adventures. So go to Panama, go to Mexico, go wherever you think is cool, and then we'll bring you back on. You can tell us all about.
Anytime.
I think Annapolis has become our home base, so I think we will always be back here.
Good. Well, I was going to say, when you were talking about liking chocolate, or while you're in Annapolis, make your way up to Maryland Avenue and go to Annabeth's. It's a little gift shop on Maryland Avenue, and she's just always has the most interesting, like, handmade chocolates and stuff like that. So that would be a good place for you to go.
Oh,
It's also just far enough away from the boat show that the people up there don't always know what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I
Don't
will
tell
keep
anybody
that
that.
in mind.
Yeah.
This was great, guys. And stick around for the party in the green room because we got to talk about Nova Scotia.
Yeah, that's one of our favorites too.
I was going to say, Chris and Kate Charbonneau are going to be like hitchhiking with you. They'll be,
Well, we can
be
do
like,
a
oh,
swap.
dear crew. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys want to travel by land? I've got and you've got
swap.
so we can do a swap.
That's right.
Cool.
Like the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't even know. Anyway, thank you guys. This was great, and of course, thanks everybody who's tuned in. This was fantastic, and just so everybody knows that this is recorded, we put it on our Facebook page. And if you have anybody that you think should have been here for the live event, you just share it with them. Make sure that they see this, and it's both on Facebook and on YouTube. So anyway, many thanks to Mount Gay Rum. Thank you for sponsoring this. We can't do it without those folks. And tune in for our next happy hour, which is only in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be on October 23rd.
Yep.
And so that's actually, I think that's 3. Is that 3 weeks? Tell me it's 3. No, wait, it's the 22nd, whatever that Friday is. After the sailboat show, whatever the Friday is after the sailboat show. And we're going to talk about double-handed racing.
Awesome.
Yeah, so switch tacks. We go cruising, racing, but we're going to be talking about double-handed racing. But thank you, Bill and Grace. It's been great to see you. I look forward to, I'll come and see you in person at the boat show.
Thanks.
Yay,
Yeah, it'll be awesome.
see
Looking
you.
forward to it.
Everybody have a great weekend. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye,
everybody.
everyone. Bye.